Okay.
This will be very informal.
Okay.
Obviously very informal.
Thank you for coming.
Yeah.
All right, everyone, let's wrap it up. Let's grab your goodies. It's 7:30. We got to get the ball rolling. All right. Hello again, and welcome to the day chapter of the Florida Native Plant Society. This is our monthly meeting. And my name is Steve, for those of you who don't know me. And the good news is the days are getting shorter, so it's going to be cold any day now. Okay? For those of you who are new members, thank you for joining, and please say hello. If you're visiting tonight and enjoy the meeting, please consider joining our not-for-profit organization, which promotes the conservation and use of native plants. Membership is as low as $35. If you're not a joiner, which I know people that are like, I don't really want to belong to the organization that'll accept me. Thanks to our director, Charlie Reverte, we now have a donate button on our website. So if you go to datafnps.org, you can donate to the organization and you'll get an email confirmation. All donations are tax deductible. You can pick the amount. You could also donate in honor of someone. Okay. I want to thank folks. Charlie, I want to thank Rita and Gomez, who every month they set up the to get all this wonderful things for us to enjoy. You want to put change or $1 or some money to help pay for future coffee and refreshments, it's not obligatory. If you don't have cash on you, you can now go to our website and pay. The society. I saw Sebastian brought some Rice Krispie treats tonight. Ricky, would you bring? Oh, okay. So she's expressing her gratitude by eating it. You can get reimbursed with raffle tickets. So speaking of raffle tickets, Susan will be selling raffle tickets, and our treasurer are 2 for $1, or you spend $5, you get 12. Our raffle plants are over there. Keep on, put the in the cup. I want to thank Raul and other plant raffle donors. When you bring in a plant, you can exchange it for a raffle ticket for each plant you bring in. We just ask you, please remember to label your plant and provide, we'll fill it out. As a donation. Note that we have some shirts and mug. I got my mug. This is is that the right-handed or left-handed? I don't know. And it says art that we commissioned local artist Kim Wiza to do it for us, and it covers a lot of the native plants that you find in Dade County and the Keys. In fact, some of them that are on our artwork we have in the raffle tonight. And we also have our shirt and bag. Okay. All right. We'll kick things off. You ready, Eduardo? Does anyone here live in Palmetto Bay? Raise your hand. All right. Eduardo's got something very important for both Palmetto and Miami-Dade residents. Take it away, Eduardo.
All right, I'm going to read brief. I know you guys have a big program. So tomorrow, roughly, this is when the first week is over the road. If I do the South Florida water management district or the Butler Bay, at about 8.5 acres of upland that's going to get restored to Pine Rockland and Rockland County. The question today, and it's actually tomorrow night, is 22 acres going to get used to belong to the corporation, but tomorrow night is vote by the Palmetto Bay Village Council is going to determine the fate of this. So basically, to make a long story short, between year long story short, the density that would have been theoretically owned by the collectors in a deal has been transferred over to these areas here, and now the decision is whether or not Palmetto Bay is going to accept 22 acres. And if any of you guys can come to the meeting tomorrow at the Palmetto Bay Village Hall. Nobody wants to fight against in this whole area, but this is a deal. You know, they're going to get roughly 80 units of density that's going to get transferred over to this side, and Palmetto Bay, and possibly Eel, gets 22 acres of pretty high quality pine rockland and rockland county. So that's what it's about. I have a some of you guys want more information, you can give me your email. And more importantly, if you can show tomorrow at Palmetto Bay Village Hall and say, all you have to say is this. Accept the donation.
All right. How many of you guys think you might be able to make that tomorrow night? Raise your hand. All right. All right. Couple of you.
So, you have any questions? Because I don't want to take forever. Well, that's a great question. How about 4:30? Because the parking lot there at Village Hall is extremely small, and we need our people to get the parking space. Because if our people get a parking space, the opposition won't have a place to park.
Well, assuming you're walking there, how late can you get there?
Well, the other thing too is that the Village Hall itself is extremely tiny. That's tomorrow night. It's going to be like overflow outside the Village Hall. So if you want to see, then I would get there. I would get there like 4:30 or 4:45.
All right. So
if you don't accept it, what happens? That is another great question. So, and I don't want to get into too much detail, but let me put it in. Anybody know what Burke Harris is? It's a law that basically, if you take developmental rights away from a property owner, they can sue you. Well, right now, Palmetto Bay is under a Burke Harris lawsuit. And so tomorrow is going to be the deciding day. Why? Because at the beginning of July, they have to go before a judge, Palmetto Bay and the property owner, and say, we have come to an agreement or we haven't. If they don't come to an agreement, which is tomorrow night, they're under a threat, not actually not a threat, there is a pending Burke Harris lawsuit from the property owner to Palmetto Bay. So that's what happens. Basically, what happens is the property owner gets their density, and on top of that, Palmetto Bay gets no park. So that doesn't make a lot of sense.
okay, so in addition to giving you your their email, what social media should they follow to?
Livable Cutler, Livable Cutler. So drop the E from Livable Cutler. If you go on there, it's a Facebook page. You can get up to date on it.
All right. Any questions for Eduardo?
I'm sorry. City Hall is roughly US 1 in Hibiscus. US 1 in Hibiscus near Franjo Road. So it would be north of 184th Street.
We have another question?
Yeah, where can I direct friends to live up here, County? Where can I direct friends to get the information?
Livable Cutler. There's a post on there, the very last post is on its information. So it's livable.
Right.
Drop the E and it's one word.
And then
Yeah, if you Google Livable Cutler Facebook, it'll come up.
Or follow our Instagram, because we're probably going to get that out there. So, chapter FNPS Instagram, data FNPS. All right, thank you, Eduardo. You can feel free to pass around your pad so people can give you their information. Okay, some other announcements. This Saturday, we have a field trip to Black Point Marina from 9:30 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. Details are in the Telangia newsletter. 11, not 11:30? Okay, so 11. There will be no program in July, but there is a July yard visit, which is really a summer social because we're not visiting a yard this year. It's on Saturday, the 19th, from 2 to 6 p.m. We've rented a pavilion at Larry and Penny Thompson Park, which has marvelous pine rockland there. It's part of the Richmond Pine Rockland Complex. And feel free to bring something to grill. I'm going to bring a grill, maybe 2 grills. And if you want to grill something, you would have to do it yourself. I'm not going to do that for you. Don't sue me if you burn yourself. I'll also provide the charcoal, but I'm not going to do like a vegan grill and a non-vegan grill, okay? All my grills are tainted. Okay? If you're vegan, you can bring your own grill, though. We will also have provided to, you're recommended to bring a potluck dish. That is the tradition. And it could be whatever you want. If you bring something, we ask that you don't bring any glass bottles, or, like you can bring wine in a box, but you can't bring like a bottle of wine. You can bring beer in cans, but you can't bring bottles of beer. Apparently, you're not allowed to bring liquor there, okay, whether it's in glass or not.
But you can't bring beer.
You can bring beer, but you can't put it in a styrofoam glass. That's another thing that's prohibited there. So no styrofoam. Okay. There you go. There will be some seating, but you are encouraged to bring a lounge chair. And if you own cups or utensils and plates, please bring those. It's that way we don't have as much garbage. We will provide both a guided walk right after eating and then a raffle, but we got to be out of there at 6. And as Patty mentioned, if you can't remember all this, it'll be in the newsletter. There is no program in August, as is tradition, but on September 23rd, our speaker will be Eric Suarez, who is part of the Invasive Species Research Program. He's a coordinator for that program at University of Florida, IFAS, in Fort Lauderdale. And he's going to talk about invasive species, I think predominantly fauna, not flora. And then my last announcement is we need you, okay? Give back to your community and volunteer with us. It's fun. So we need help with our nursery. If you like to grow things and you live near Pinecrest, you could help out Raul Moas. We have both our new board members are jumping on board, and Daniela's going to be our chair for our Native Plant Day committee for next year, Daniela Champney, and we also have Harley Guerra, who's going to be chair of our Education Outreach Committee. So he needs volunteers. If you have a winning smile, and when we go to events, of course, now we're at the time of year where no one wants to be outside, but eventually when October rolls around, we'll probably start going to more and more events. So if you wish to volunteer, see Ricky. Where's Ricky? Ricky, we should probably get a pad or something to pass around. All right, next time. All right, are there any other announcements? Does anyone wish to make any other announcements? Okay, would you like me to call out the guests tonight? All right, who's a guest? Welcome, welcome. I've seen you before, though. You've been on field trips, right?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
But I mostly sit behind the desk.
Very cool. Well, welcome, welcome. And you guys too. I know I've seen you on field trips. And that's great. Thanks for being here tonight. Should be a fun meeting. Any other announcements? All right. Let me go ahead and begin with the raffle descriptions. I see some books were brought here. Who brought these books? This one by Sue Reed and what was? Jeannie, did you bring these? Are these supposed to be raffled or what was your intention? Okay. Well, this is Climate Wise Landscaping by Sue Reed and Ginny Steibolt with a foreword by Douglas Tallamy. And this is a pretty nice item for the raffle because it's signed by Ginny Steibolt. All right. So we got a marvelous plants. Many members brought some in, and you can usually tell Raoul's plants because they're in those little square pots, and we'll get to those eventually. So here we have a combo of a royal palm. You might want a big yard, or better yet, a royal palm you should give to like your neighbor across the street. Then you can enjoy it from your yard. Look at the yard, it is a cool plant and it's endangered. Royal palms, traditionally, I think in Cuba they use the fruits to feed the pigs, the hogs, and that's supposed to flavor the meat just right. But you also get a bonus is this native grass, which is basket grass, and this is really good for shady areas. It will die back in the winter if you don't water it, but in the summer when the rains hit, we're still waiting for the rains. When is it going to rain, Jim? This will perk up real nice. It's a lovely grass that'll tolerate shade. And we have another nice combo here. I'm going to put this with the other Florida prairie clover, and I'll get back to this. Here we have a baby firebush seedling, but this thing grows really fast, so don't be daunted by how small this is, thinking you're going to kill it. This thing by the end of August will probably be like this tall, you know. So this is a firebush, one of the best natives for attracting wildlife, especially butterflies. They'll visit the flowers, but hummingbirds will also visit the flowers. They have these red or orange tubular flowers. Unfortunately, most of them are hybrids now. It's because they brought in an exotic one. And most nursery people grow this not by cuttings, but by seeds, which is the preferred way to grow native plants so that you have genetic diversity. But that's our native firebush, Hamelia patens. And then this looks like Karina grew these. Yeah, she got these to grow pretty quickly. This is your coral bean, which is a native narrow shrub that's found in pinelands, also in coastal hammocks. It also has red tubular flowers and has these bright red seeds that you probably eat. These will drop their leaves, it's not dying, and then they'll put out their flowers. And that way, a lot of tropical plants do that so that all the wildlife can see them amongst all the other plants. So coral bean gets to be about 8-10 feet tall. It's narrow and it does have spines on it. But it's a good pine rockland species also. Here we have a little native violet. This will also tolerate shade. It's common violet, Viola sororia. And this grows the edges of hammocks or in glades, like glades of hammocks, little openings, meadows. And this was historic to around Matheson Hammock, but it's further up the state too. It's in Palm Beach and north of there. It's a little low-growing wildflower, edible flowers, edible leaves. It only gets about that tall, about 8 inches tall, if that. Here we have a beautyberry, Americana, which is Latin for American beautyberry. And this is a great plant, especially for beginners. It's a tough plant. You're not going to kill this plant. It'll have usually purple flowers with purple berries. There is one that has white berries, though. It's still native. And this will attract mockingbirds predominantly, who will eat the fruit. It's in the mint family. And they say that this repels mosquitoes. Here we have speed, which is Verbicina organicus. It's taller. It'll get like real tall with white flowers. It's called crown beard. This is a great plant for your yard. It'll attract lots of pollinators. It's in the sunflower family. Grows on the edge of the hammocks. This is a surprise to be here. Here's a federally endangered plant. This is Blodgett's wild mercury. And this is a rare herb that's only found in Dade County and the Keys, and it grows in pine rocklands and in light gaps hammocks. And this is Archithamnia blodgetti. I named after John Loomis Blodgett, who was a doctor in Key West in the 1850s. Here we have rouge plant, Rivina humilis. The nurseries don't really sell this much anymore. I don't know why. This is a great little subshrub or herbaceous subshrub. It doesn't get woody. It has lovely little flowers and red berries, and it will grow in shade. It will cover parts of your yard though, so you really only need one. Here we have dayflower. It's another wonderful wildflower that grows in pine rocklands. It also grows in coastal strand habitats. This one has a blue flower that comes out in the morning and kind of melts off the plant. This is a Camelina erecta. It's an Camelinaceae. There's a monocot, and it's semi-succulent. And this will form dense patches in the ground. Needs sun. Here we got a double of both coca lobas. This is Coca loba uvitra, which is sea grape. This is a great tree, and you don't really see it landscaped much in people's yards anymore. This used to be all over Dade County. And what's nice about this, it is dioecious, so if you don't want the fruit to mess up your driveway or whatever, you get the male. But if you get the female, the fruit is edible. You can eat the fruit. I've read in hippie books that these leaves could be used as plates. You could use it as a postcard. So instead of buying your Dixie plates at the store, you can just go say, son, go out and grab me some plates. And here's a cousin of it, which is Coca loba diversifolia. And it's called diverse foliage. You can see when they're young, the leaves are quite big. As the tree gets bigger, they get small and orbicular. And this is common in hammocks. The sea grape's more coastal. But this one is a smaller tree than the sea grape typically, but it can get pretty tall, and it's usually narrower and wide. This one's also dioecious, which means there's male and female plants. So you can always tell the female trees in the hammocks because they have scratch marks on their barks, and you can figure that out. All right, here we have a state endangered plant. This is man in the ground. I think this is the last one Raoul has. So this is a rare vine with real pretty lipstick red flowers. It's a morning glory. It grows in pine rockland. It really is a showy vine. And it's a little bit tricky to keep alive for some folks. But this will grow. They call it man in the ground. It's got a big underground tuber. And then if you notice on some of these, as you peruse the raffle plants, some of these tags have a little blue. So if you don't win this in the raffle tonight, you can go on our website and buy these plants. So we have a plant store online where you can purchase plants, and you pick them up either at this meeting, or actually it'll be the next summer social, or at Raoul's house in Pinecrest. So he's been growing a lot of wildflowers from pine rocklands. This is one of them. I'm going to talk about a series of asters that he has here. So this is Aster concolor, which the common name is silver aster. The new name is Cynthia trichum. And real pretty little wildflower, very narrow. It'll have fairly large sunflower type flowers that I think are bluish purple. And there's another Cynthia trichum found in pine rockland called scale leaf aster or Cynthia trichum adnatum. And this will have bigger, larger clusters of flowers. And he's got another over here. This one's found in wetlands. This is Aster simonzii, another bigger plant. And this one, unlike the other two, will have rhizomes underground, so it'll spread underground a little bit. So it is really good for like a blooming meadow feature in your yard. Yeah. So those are the aster collection, and then he's got some other wildflowers like this partridge pea. This is the annual one, Chemacrista fasciculata. It's a host plant for a few butterflies. So are the asters. The aster, the genus Symphyia is a host plant, I think, for the Phaon crescents. And here we have a butterfly bush, which is a wetland plant. This is Cephalanthus occidentalis. It has these big Sputnik-like white flowers. It's in Rubiaceae, very popular for pollinators. It needs its feet wet. It's missing a cup. Okay. Here we have a young Florida fiddlewood, which is Cytheroxylum spinosum. It's not spiny though. I love this tree. It has semi-showy white flowers that are fragrant. Small white flowers are the key to attracting small butterflies like the Itala and the streaks and the blues. They like to visit the small white flowers. This one's also dioecious, where there's male and female. This has, some people might not like it as much because it gets these caterpillars that'll just completely denude the plant. But they're native. So. It's a moth. I can't remember the species. It's one of those tent caterpillars. You'll get hundreds of them. Leaf roller? Okay. All right, you guys will be excited to hear Raoul has an asterisk next to these native milkweeds. This tuberosa right now, they're sell out probably after tomorrow, now that I'm telling everyone he has it. But this is a host plant for the monarch. These are tricky to grow. You can grow them. I have one that's persisted in my yard for about 3 years, and it's getting nicer every day. Raoul has them in his yard. He cheats a little bit. He puts a little fertilizer on his, but it keeps alive, you know. And this grows in pine rocklands and pinelands. And ours, even though it's not recognized anymore taxonomically, ours is very different. This species grows all the way to Kansas. And ours is a small little spindly thing. So monarch, you're only going to get 1 or 2 caterpillars that are going to develop on your Asclepias tuberosa. This used to be considered subspecies Rolfsii, but it is the native one. So when you buy native milkweeds like other tuberosa, make sure you get the Florida material, the South Florida or Peninsular Florida material, because that other stuff doesn't belong here and it could genetically interfere with our native stuff. All right, we got another endangered plant. This is a Florida prairie clover, and we have another one behind it, which also has a bonus plant that looks like a not native, a pagoda plant. Okay. Florida prairie clover is only found in Collier, Dade counties, and this grows on the edges of hammocks. It's also at Crandon. I don't know if you guys saw it on your field trip, but this occurs out there. Dahlia floridana, or Dahlia carthaginus variety floridana. It's in a pea family. It'll have these tiny little pea flowers. They're not showy, but it's a nice little shrub. Pea flowers are usually visited by bees. Here's another Chemacrista. This is the perennial one. This is Thuringiana, which will have red anthers. And this one tends to flop over. It's less erect. So this is an unusual one that nursery people don't usually have. And then the final 2 we have here, this is a native Hypericum, which is the St. John's wort family. And this one's common name is St. Andrew's cross. It's Hypericum hypericifolia. Real pretty yellow flowers. It's sort of a subshrub. Normally it likes it wet, but I've seen this growing in pretty dry pine rockland. And finally, we have yet another endangered plant. This one is in nursery trade that Raoul brought. This is Jacomontia reclinata, which is beech cluster vine. It's native to like northern Palm Beach County, south to Key Biscayne. And this is a morning glory relative with white flowers. There's a cousin of it that looks like a dead ringer for it. They're really hard to distinguish. But there's a cousin called the Jacomontia curtisii. It's the pineland cluster vine. Both have very similar habits where the vine just grows along the ground. It'll twine a little bit, but not very much. All right, we also have, is this poster being raffled? Is that the idea? Okay, and there was a ticket on top of one of these cups. I don't know what that means. Is that for the poster? The Giacomonia? Okay, I'll put it in there for you. There's one in there. Okay. All right, that's it for the raffle. Oh, we got some giveaways. You can get them while they're there. Over, but there's mangoes. They're in season, and Patty, you brought some shade. So fruits and then cuttings for your yard. Who brought the mango? Thank you. You know what kind they are? Yeah, Kent is a late season, so, but they could be. All right. I wish to introduce our wonderful speaker tonight, Diana Umpiere. Did I pronounce that correct? Should I do it? Should I do it with a Spanish accent?
Yeah.
Okay, Diana Umpiere.
There you go.
Oh, Diana. Is it just Dion? No A? Okay. She's going to talk to us about the natural darkness, essential. It's essential to our native plants and nocturnal ecology. It should be fascinating talk. This presentation will highlight why natural light and darkness are a must for healthy native ecosystems. I'm going to let her talk about it rather than me describe it, but she has worked as a geoscientist, a geographer, a certified planner, grassroots organizer, and educated. She's a former president and vice president of Dark Sky International and has been leading Night Sky Conservancy of Florida in its current role as Dark Skies Florida chapter and coordinating a yearly Everglades Dark Sky Week and Month initiative. That sounds like fun. And she has lived here in South Florida for over 20 years now and is a Florida certified secondary school science teacher. Let's give a warm welcome to Dion. Of course you do. This is for the YouTube.
YouTube thing, yeah, okay.
So we're gonna make you famous.
Gosh. Where's your accent from? They don't tell me it's a United Nations.
Where's
accent.
my accent?
No, my accent. And people always ask me, and I say, Nations accent.
United Nations.
Yes, it is. You find out. I have no idea where this stupid thing goes. Okay, that's good enough?
Yes.
All right, sounds good. You can all hear me okay? All right, good. Here. Guys are the plant experts. In fact, the first time that I bought some, that at my house and I tried planting, boy, I killed quite a few. I think I'm much better now. But talking about the night sky is, how do I begin to this? This particular weekend was not an easy one for me. I think you've all by now heard, I think it's actually international news at this point, that there are plans for bringing in a so-called detention center, whatever, at the edge, really in the middle of the Everglades, in the north. Yeah, I know. So the whole thing it was really upsetting, obviously, for a lot of many reasons, and some that are far more important than what I'm going to mention. But the reason I ended up getting involved in all this dark sky stuff was back when I got a telescope from my son, who was here a moment ago, and he just kind of went out because he's kind of shy. And I ended up finally doing a hobby that I wanted to do since forever, since I was a little girl, right? Wanted to be an astronaut, whatever, astronomy, all this stuff that little kids, right, dream of doing. But that was a big driver for me for why I went to school, what I ended up majoring at the end, which was in geology. I saw Carl Sagan. I can actually say that I met the guy walking by. I went to Cornell University, and I had a marvelous education, and I learned a lot of things. And despite all of that, it was not until I got that telescope that I found out this thing that had inspired me since I was a little girl. We were losing it. It was really that moment when I says, oh my gosh, where have I been, right? And that's how most contamination, much of the issues, environmental issues that we have happen, because they happen a little bit at a time. Sometimes it takes, something for us to realize, oh my gosh, how did it get this bad, right? And so for me, getting involved with that also meant, where do I go with my new telescope? And that led me to getting more and more involved with Big Cypress. Long story short, as I'll explain in the presentation, part of why it was hard preparing for this presentation, and I mentioned, Jenny, oh, there you is because I was just a bucket of tears. I mean, I just was heartbroken because I worked so hard, along with a lot of other people, to get Big Cypress National Preserve designated as an international dark sky park. And anyway, so it's hard. These days it's difficult, right? I mean, I want to acknowledge, I want to let you know that these are difficult times. Doesn't matter what part of the spectrum you are, these are just difficult times. So it's really hard at times, right? If you're anything like me, and if you have Latina blood through you, we go like this. And if you're Latina, you're more like this, right? Okay, so we go through this. And the Nazca is this one thing that most of the times brings me back, because it's the one thing that will stay around even when humanity is gone. So what we have to is, how does life interact with this natural resource that is always going to be there? So anyway, this, by the way, this, what you see in there in that photo, can you guess what those little green things are? Huh? Nope. Somebody said it, lighting bugs, fireflies, right? So those are fireflies. And can you see the comet? Okay, that comet was Neowise. When did Neowise show up? Summer 2020. What was happening during the summer of 2020? Everybody, right? Summer of 2020, right? In the middle of the pandemic, we had this amazing comet that showed up in the sky. And literally, I just went to the edge of Broward County, in the Everglades side area, and my son captured this photo of fireflies and a comet. Wow. I mean, these are remarkable things that are out there if we just drive just even half hour away. This is only like 40 minutes from where I live in Broward. Next slide. Okay, what am I? Question. Any guesses? Okay, a car. A bicycle. What part of the bicycle? Yeah, the little lamp that they put, I don't know if it's Sion or whatever the heck the thing is. So this picture, this was taken, if you know, Shark Valley Observation Tower. I was up there that night with some members of the National Park Service. As you'll see in a moment, they were basically doing an all sky monitoring, getting images. And while we were there, and they were doing their stuff with their equipment, this light kept on getting closer and closer. And all I remember was the park person that I was there, he was really upset. He had flown from, I forgot where, Colorado or something. He flew for this whole monitoring that they were doing, and he was losing some of his data. It finally came in, sure enough, it was a bicycle. And it was a teaching moment for me. Like, it was like, I get to tell this person that came with these horrible lights why one light matters. Because that's one light. One light. Next slide. This is a question for you. Is this a street light or a tree light? What do you see mostly illuminated?
The trees.
Vegetation or the asphalt or the cement? Right. This is what is happening with most of our street lights out there. Most of our street lights out there, even those that supposedly are shielded, tend to waste most of their light shining not where it's intended. Okay. Next slide. Anybody know where Port Mayaca is? Okay. Lake Okeechobee? Right? Port Mayaca is just one of, any of you that have been involved in Everglades restoration issues, there's this big thing that we always worry about when the lake is too full, they have to discharge water east and west, and the water tends to go towards the Stewart area. It's in the Port Mayaca area. That was about 2 miles away at a little park area. Next slide. That's what was producing those lights. These were like some new energy efficient. Energy efficient. Let me just say that again. Energy efficient. But are they energy conserving? No. That's what they were doing. And needless to say, they were all awake. They're all pretty confused. Next slide. There's many ways, and I'm going to kind of just keep through this, and I have to, those of you that are help me if I start going too much over, or if you need to give me like 10, 15-minute reminders, that's fine. There's many maps out there. This is just one of several, but this is one that is pretty reliable. This is from data from 2015, so this has changed. If the team that did this had done this recently, we would see a lot of this data just start shifting. And with that part in the middle, where if you want to like use the little mouse, where you see darkness, right? That right there, the bulk of it is Big Cypress National Preserve. And towards the south, obviously we have Everglades National Park and Florida Bay. And Florida Bay, a big chunk of Florida Bay is Everglades National Park. Next slide.
What was the date of that picture?
That particular one is, I think it was 2015, was when, because those are like from satellite data. So that was remote sensing data. And then like, it took like a few years for the scientists, I think this was Fabio. Yeah, Fabio was one of the, he's a good friend. Yeah, that Italian, I think it's an Italian group, that research team, they're incredible, that did this work. And they might have updated this with like newer data, but the fact is, and what this represents is only zenith. What is zenith? It's just what is on top, right? Right. So this only represents, if you're looking down, if you're like the IAS going around and looking down, this will be the light that ends up scattering up all the way up, right? But you have all this other set of light pollution that is, that covers other angles. So that's something important to remember. Sometimes people see this, oh, so there's no light pollution at all somewhere in the middle of the Everglades. Let me just show you that one light.
Yeah.
That light was not going to be caught by the satellite, but it's caught by you and I when we're out there. It's caught by the birds, it's caught by the plants. Next slide. So back, if you remember when I said back in 2013, 2014, I think it was, when the National Park Service sent a team down, and they came to both Everglades National Park and to Big Cypress National Preserve, and also to Biscayne National Park. And they took images, what they call all sky images, to try to basically record what are the current conditions. Because they feel, part of, and you go through the Organic Act and all these other enabling federal legislation that created the Park Service and their mission, and part of it includes taking care of the nocturnal resource. And you could see in there all the way on the top right there, that's dry tortugas, right? As you move a bit closer towards Miami, you start seeing one that I like to see. Yeah, okay, this one. So if you point at this one over there, okay, yeah, that one right there. It's probably hard to see on, because of we're projecting on the wall. But you see there's a little blip over here? See this little blip? Okay, guess what that is? That's a golf course. Illuminated entire with nobody playing. Nobody playing, okay? And obviously, as we get closer and closer, this is in Biscayne National Park, we start getting a sense for, how light pollution. Part of why it's important, I find that these particular images are really helpful, is that normally when we think of light pollution, we think of it from the perspective of what the human sees, right? What us as the light see. But there's a whole lot more of photons of light that are out there that we may not capture it, but other animals, plants can sense it. And that was one of the really good things about this part of data, is that it helps to capture data that we may not be able to capture with our own eyes and understand the impacts better. Next slide. I'm going to go through this quickly, but these are images from the International Space Station. There's no secret, as you see more of this so-called energy efficient lighting that is coming out. A lot of it tends to be white LEDs, and we're starting to see, next slide, we're going to start to see kind of like a progression of how Miami and a lot of other parts of the world are changing because of these conversions that are happening. Okay. So I'm not going to read through all this. The good thing about this is I know I'm talking to people that get it, right? But sometimes I bring these things in because even though, like on my end, I was inspired by the night time since I was a little girl, and I still didn't know I was losing the very thing I loved, right? And so there's sometimes things that we don't realize, which is, for example, we have a lot of protections. Granted, we keep on fighting battles over protecting our watersheds, right? We have landscapes, people that fight even for view sheds, that we want to have beautiful landscapes, but we don't talk about the night shed, right? The night sky shed, the lightscapes, so as sometimes we call them. And light flows further and faster than any other pollutant. Okay. Yet, of all the pollutants that we have to deal with, and there's many to pick from, this is probably the easiest to fix from a scientific point of view. From a cultural standpoint of view, perhaps it is one of the hardest. Next. So light pollution affects many things, and one of the things that I want to do in this presentation is kind of be with all the details, because there's so many really good studies out there, and there's a lot of, in fact, if you just go to darksky.org website, there's plenty of really great information. Some of it, things that you can print, that you can share, as the things that you can do to kind of spread why that is impacting. One thing that I remember thinking, I don't know, I think it was, yeah, I know what it was. I was in the bathroom when the thought came to me on this one, is are we a diurnal or a nocturnal species, human beings? We're diurnal. Okay. So if we're diurnal species, does light pollution affect us? Right? Okay. So I mentioned that because, even the way that I phrased this presentation, I was really struggling with that when I added the word nocturnal ecology. Because the fact is that all of us, all life on Earth needs both day and night. All of it. All of it. We unfortunately, unfortunately I hear, well, there's not a lot of nocturnal life out there. So I'm not worried about the lights over here, whatever. All of it is impacted in some way or other. So I'm not going to go through all those things in there, but I wanted to just emphasize just how the impacts are really quite extensive. Sometimes they're direct, the light is, for example, in this case, there's a light that is exciting this little frog. I think it might be a coquille, I'm not sure. But this happens with everything. Next slide. Unlike other diurnal species, right? There are species out there that don't have curtains like we do. We can go home and we can create the night in our own bedrooms. But all the other species out there, including the plants, cannot do that. Next slide. We've known, I remember I don't know, maybe a year or so ago, or two, I went, New York Times has this thing, they call it a time machine, where you can go back and look at very, very, very old articles, and there's all kinds of really interesting things. I wouldn't say cool, because not everything past is cool. But one of the things that really just amazed me, just how much we knew before there were all these studies that we have today, that light does have an impact. So this is more than well known, more than well documented. Forward. Okay. Life evolved with these changes in light. From day one, from the day that that we were just a tiny little bit of dust, and it started to come together. One thing that everything out there does, it kind of does this dance. What were the first life forms? So, like I'm an Earth teacher, so this kind of one is fun. I like some of the first life forms that existed on our planet were what?
Bacteria.
Yeah, cyanobacteria is one of them. Cyanobacteria reacts, right? There's actually part of the photosynthesis process that happens. That light trapping that then converts it into something. Why do we have oxygen? Why exactly? We would not have any oxygen in our atmosphere, not 1 ounce of oxygen, if not because of photosynthesis. We owe life on Earth to plants, along with other things, of course. Okay. And part of that has happened because of this cycle, because we're exposed to sunlight, to one particular star, and then to other forms. Okay, next slide. So in real life, and just going to go through this quickly, is natural light just varies throughout the day, right? Even though we say day and night, it's really not really that. Light changes in color, intensity, right? I mean, all kinds of different factors that create this variation. And that's really how light works. So over the millions of years that life has evolved on our planet, it has learned to adapt to these cycles, right? To this way, these variations that happen every day. Next slide. But the artificial light that we create does not mimic that, right? And because our lights, when we turn them on, stay the same when after we have it. Right now, I mean, there are some newer technologies that are happening, and some of them are LED related, where you can buy some special technology to go with it to kind of help tune and mimic a little bit more of that natural rhythm. And unfortunately, as you can imagine, everything that has an add-on means a little bit more money to spend it. Okay, next slide. Out of all the lights, the LED lights have been one of the most challenging for us, for those of us working on the dark sky related issues. Part of it is, I mean, in fact, a big part of it is because of this energy efficient component of it that unfortunately, you know, as cities and counties and states are looking to conserve energy, they look at energy efficiency technology as kind of like those easy things that they can do, because it's so much easier to replace a fixture. It's so much easier to replace your dishwasher with something that is more energy efficient than it is for us to learn, do we really need to have that light on the entire day? Do we really need to have it that illuminated, right? So the conservation factor hasn't been involved a lot with this, all these retrofits that have been going on. What we do know is that because light is really more than one, you know, the light is emitted in a lot of different wavelengths, right? So if we were to like put a prism, whatever, you know, we see this every time there's a rainbow, the light splits into different colors, right? And that's because it's a mix of different, and when it comes to the blue light, there's a really big, strong spike on the short wavelengths, which is what gives us that kind of the bluish purplish. So next slide. And this is what you see here. If we're in a daytime, the top graph shows more or less that kind of that distribution that we have of different wavelengths that are in color. Whereas if we start looking at, for example, the LED lights, especially those that are like 4,000, so forth, we have a really big spike. And it has to do with, again, the design of how the LEDs are made, which I'm not going to go into that level of detail, but just to say that we perceive the light as white, but it really, you're getting a mix of lights. And this is creating a problem for a lot of many species, because the moment that that blue light comes in, you see how we also have a spike in blue during the daylight? So what it does, it triggers, and it affects, for example, things such as our circadian rhythm, not only of our species, but of other life. Next slide. And sometimes these things can be obvious. This is a place out in, where is it? This is on 75 when you go on Alligator Alley and you ever stop at the Mikosuke station, you know, to grab some snacks there before you go out to Big Cypress to look at your plants and all that cool stuff. They were doing some retrofits, and there was one building that they had this light, and in the other one, they had a more amber light. Do you see all the insects around it? This is not even an LED. I'm pretty sure this one is not an LED. It might be a halogen. Next slide. These buildings are right next to each other. No bugs. Okay. Next slide. The tricky thing with light is that it's very difficult for us to just say, well, can we just like not do all these retrofits into this white light? And the fact is that what we end up happening, and this happens with a lot of other types of contaminations, you try to find what is that does most harm overall versus saying what doesn't harm or does not harm. Because, for example, what we know is that even though the yellowish lights tend to be better for some insects, for fireflies, for instance, for some of the species of fireflies, it tricks them, it confuses them, because it mimics the color, you know, of what they emit. Next slide. Next slide. Okay. I had to put this up because I think you all know what these are. And you can talk, you know a whole lot better than I can tell you about them. I just happen to be proud of these photos because it was my son that took them. And so he has a couple of friends, they all know exactly where to go to see them. And of course, they never tell anybody where they are, because we all know that ghost orchids, part of the reason why they're in danger, even though they have not gotten the protections that they need, is because people think they're really cute, and they want to grab them, and then, you know, and we end up. Now, how do these little guys get, what's the word? Pollen, right? Pollinated. Yeah, pollinated, right? That's what I was thinking, right? Right. And what time does it come in? Nighttime. It's at nighttime, right? Okay. And so it is definitely, you know, so these are like what an example of where these are the easy ones for us to tell. These are definitely plants that we know where if we add a lot of lighting, for example, in that area, then we affect their pollination, right? So this one is kind of like one of those easy ones, right? The fireflies are the easy ones because those are the obvious things. But the impacts of light happens to all vegetation, just in different ways. Next slide. And I could go on and on about all the different things that there are. There's so many. It's just, again, the easiest way. When I started working on this, I used to kind of just talk about certain species. And then finally, I got to the point, especially after seeing so much research and talking to other scientists. And I remember asking the stupid, dumb question, so which light is best? And I remember, I will never forget the one that is off. I mean, I felt so dumb. I asked that question. I think I was already on the national board of the Dark Sky Association. And I felt so dumb for asking that question because he was so right. The next dumb question, actually it wasn't a question, it's a statement that I made. And it was a fellow board member that corrected me. And I never forgot that lesson because I felt like somebody smacked me in the hand. It's like, how dare you? Because I dared to say the word wildlife-friendly lighting. And she said, there's no such thing. Because the only lighting that is wildlife-friendly are the one that is natural light, right? Next slide. So solutions, there's plenty of solutions. And you mentioned, if you go again on the darksky.org website, which I encourage you to do, you're going to see one of the things that happened during the last year that I was serving on the board is they came up with this thing that kind of, what they call the 5 principles. And it kind of encapsulates the things that the community has already been saying for a long time. And it kind of helped to kind of package it in a nice way. But we all know, there's programs that they have to encourage people from buying good lighting products, ways that we can encourage, the lighting sector to produce good products. I mean, there's all kinds, the solutions are there. Technology is not the issue. Next slide. Right? All of these things are things that will give us better lighting when lighting is needed, right? Because again, the best lighting is which one? Right, the ones that are natural, right? Exactly. But if you have to do it, these are the things that, at least on my end, I think encapsulate what is it that, when we put all these components in place, this gives us the best lighting possible, okay? And one that I would like to, especially since I'm talking to a community of people that love plants, what is one thing that people that love plants like to do? The illuminate. Every time I see that, I want to have a heart attack. But I have to remind them most of the time the people who are having over illuminated are probably not members of the Florida Native Plants. Right? I'm pretty sure. Okay. So next slide. So we know technology is available. There are a lot of things. In fact, I don't know the status of that at this point. Those of you that work in policy, just when I used to work for Sierra Club, and at the time, I remember that the Florida Native Society was coming up with a template for ordinances to help, with the landscape part of ordinances. And I remember that there was talk about including a kind of a lighting component on it. I have no idea whether that ever got integrated. And again, that's a whole separate discussion on it. But the idea is this: we have technology, we have policy solutions, right? We have all the research that you want to back it up. But the reason why I don't spend so much time talking that, because the most important thing is people need to share. And me personally, after having served 6 years on the board, and could go on about what all that meant, all the amazing people I got to know all the amazing stuff that I learned and all the little smackings in the hands that I got for when I would get something wrong. But the one thing that I've come to realize is that nothing convinces somebody to change their behavior as much as when they hear a story. I have yet to see somebody inspired to care for something until they actually care for that something. And to care, it has to be personal, right? And so that's what I love about telling stories and why I could go on about all these different things and how even there's stories associated with plants on this. But stories inspire us, they remind us, right? They give us shock, they do all these things. And this story that is happening right now in the middle of Big Cypress is one of those moments where we can inspire people to action, right? Next slide. I'm gonna just two quick stories, and we're getting close to the end. This was a book, I forgot the name of the book, but this story, this was in a book that was written by Timothy Ferris. And in there was this quote that he put in that I have used this slide, I don't know for how many, over the last 10 years, this slide has always been in my presentations. But it wasn't until a few years ago that I learned something even more remarkable about the person that made this quote. And so he said, the light pollution wastes billions of dollars annually to eliminate the bellies of birds and aircraft, right? And trees, right? And this was taken, I forgot, this was several years ago, again, also by my son. Well, so let me tell you a little bit about Timothy Ferris. Next slide. Back in 1966, there was this little boy that grew up in Key Biscayne, and he acquired his first telescope. Back then, in the 1950s, when he was growing up, he still had an amazing night sky over Key Biscayne, and it inspired him. Next slide. He ended up getting involved with other people in his school. They had, I guess, a little club that they formed. I think it was called Biscayne Astronomy Club or something. I forgot. Part of the article got cut off. This is in the Miami Herald, 1960s. Talked about him. The next slide is the one where if I chuckle a little bit to cry, you'll understand. Right now, out there, outside of our solar system, there's 2 records that he produced that tell the story of humanity. They were produced by this guy that grew up in Key Biscayne. I mean, this is the power of inspiration. That's the stuff that we're robbing. Imagine if Timothy Harris had grown up today, he may not have had that telescope that he had. Maybe none of those things would have happened. And who knows how many other things we rob when we take those. So it was cool. I forgot this part. I remember when I learned this little fact about him, I tried to find out, shoot, I wonder if he's still alive, because I don't know how many times that I learned something really cool about somebody and I Googled their name. It's like, oh, they died last year or 2 years ago. And I'm like, darn it, I just missed. And I learned that he was still alive. So then I went on a search, like, how can I let him know, correspond with him? And I finally, there was like a few email exchanges and I finally caught his attention. And I remember he's sharing something about how when he shared this idea about putting these records together with Carl Sagan, they were, I don't know, some apartment somewhere in New York. And he shared how some of the music that got inspired in there was the music that he would listen to, because his mom was like really big into classical music. And some of the music that is in there was inspired when he lived here in Key Biscayne. So anyway, it's really cool. Next slide. The other one is just, again, I mentioned part of what got me involved in stuff was related to, how can we protect, how we can improve the access? Because as you all know, most public parks out there close at what time? sunset, right? So there's special permits and things that you have to get in order to have groups, gatherings that actually do either stargazing or something like, for example, on your end, you know, people like to look at night wildlife at night. There's some stuff that happens to plants that only happens at night. So this picture was taken by my son at Big Cypress, and it was in 2016 when he finally got that designation. Next slide. But it was a work, right? It was a lot of people involved. We started that work around 2013, 2014. We met with Pedro Ramos. If some of you have met him, at the time he was the superintendent of Big Cypress National Preserve. If he's not within, you know, the people that have been affected by recent changes in park staff, hopefully he's still there. Okay. But anyway, because of the designation of Big Cypress National Preserve, the county, Collier County, decided to up their lighting standards for their things, right? It may not have happened if it had not been because we're working to get this designation. And anyway, so next slide. It also inspired, if any of you have ever gone to and seen these posters that you can buy. There's even new ones that I saw the other day in their local stores that you can buy. Next slide. You can read the things in there, but this is one that was dear to me. This is a photo of my son looking out in the middle of, you know, Big Cypress National Preserve, looking out the sky. We were camping out there. That's our tent. And that was the National Park Service sharing this image that we took out there. I mean, I was like, you know, that a moment, you know, because last thing that I would know is we were out there. Remember, there was this other couple that was, there was a couple that was camping near us, and the lady was worried about gators. You know, I'm like, the gators are minding their business. You know, they have no desire to go crawling into your tent, but she was dead worried about the thing. And I just remember being out there, we're taking photos, and it was such a special night. We haven't had, my son and I haven't had that experience since then. We've gone camping all the times, but that particular night was so special. And this is one of the areas that is being threatened, right? Because remember what light can do. So if you add a bunch of floodlights into that area, which is literally, if you have like Big Cypress, let's say Big Cypress is like this, kind of like a square looking, okay? This detention center, this old airport that was fought is kind of like in the middle, you know, especially closer like to here. So the impact could be pretty horrific. Next slide. Start closing in. Esperanza. How many of you speak Spanish? What does esperanza mean? Hope. This little firefly was found. We were just beginning to, I forgot what year it was, 2023. It might have been the first or the second time that we started celebrating Dark Sky Week in Miami-Dade County. And we happened to have that particular year, there was a firefly expert that had flown down. He was doing surveys for fireflies, And I remember connecting with him. He took this photo in Hollywood, Florida. Any of you have been to, what is it? Oh God, I can't remember the thing. Hollywood is right on the intercoastal Cove. Yeah, Cove near Center. Okay, that's where this firefly was found. And it was so remarkable because all the fireflies that I've seen out in the Everglades in South Florida have been like deep in the Everglades, right? And so to me, the fact that there was this little firefly that somehow, despite all the light pollution that was in the area, was still hanging on, that to me gave me hope, right? Next slide. And there's, sorry, go here. I just wanted to point this out because this is one of the things where you guys can all, for example, get involved with is this fireflyatlas.org project, because I said there's a big citizen science component to that. Next one. Yes, we have fireflies in Miami. This Florida intertidal firefly has been found at Olida River State Park. Okay. In that particular species, I know that Cersei Society, who spearheaded the effort, they were trying to get federal protections. Not really don't know where that stands at right now, and I think we'll know that there's a lot of other difficulties going on at that level. Next slide. I mean, it's what they do. Who has since become, you know, just one of these inspiration people. I haven't met her in person, but I've been on the phone with her, and I always feel so kind of dumb on the side because I'm just like, I know I sound like a little kid, like, you know, I just saw my first astronaut. You know, that's how I feel when she's around, because I just have such an admiration for her. And she has, you know, scientists, most scientists, not all, but a lot of scientists have a real hard time getting away from all the techie talk and just bringing things out at a level that you can relate to. And Sarah Lewis has mastered that so well. She can tell you about fireflies in a way that literally just connects your heart and soul to these creatures. And so I love this thing that she once said. It's like they're basically their little silent love language. And also they're, you know, they're just flying around and flashing their hearts out. Next slide. So that's the project. Next one. Okay, so what can you guys do? So there's a lot you can do. As I said, the policy, the technology is available. If you go to darksky.org website, there's plenty of, I mean, you know, since the last, I think the year, I served on the board, I think from 2015 to 2020, I think it was. Since then, they have added even more information. There's more additional programs that they added for encouraging, you know, lighting solutions to help to relate, for example, what does plants, how does it relate to light pollution? And one of the things that I have right here on the top right that I want to encourage you to read is they have a booklet, and I think I had it on the, yeah. Just had in there, yeah. So if you go, I think if you scroll down to maybe like the third page, maybe no, maybe the fourth page. Yeah, yeah. Keep scrolling, keep scrolling. Yeah, there you go. That, yep, that one right there. So that section, this is the biology. So if you scroll up or down or whatever the thing is, it says how light affects biology. And that one I think is really good, you know, from the standpoint of the things that you guys help to protect, because it deals again with that connection with just any life form is impacted. And it goes through and it gives a lot of examples, all the different pathways. You can scroll down just a little bit of how lighting can impact life. So it's something that I highly recommend getting familiar with. Has good graphics and everything. Next slide. Can we go back? I think I'm almost done. Okay, okay. That's okay. To go near the end. So one of the things that I recommend you do as part of, you just can't disassociate lighting from plants. You care about native plants. You care about not introducing plants that hurt other plants. The moment that we add lighting, artificial lighting, not only are we hurting artificial light, but we might be changing kind of the, so to speak, the competition, right? What is it that in order to survive, plants either adapt, you know, life adapts, or life competes, right? Or they share with each other. And so those are some of the balances that have been affected by this huge amount of introduction of lighting at night. We have created imbalances. And sometimes that lighting can actually help to introduce some exotics in the environment. You know, so anyway, so those papers are great. There's other things you can do, and I can share that information with you afterwards. One of the things we're hoping is for Everglades National Park to also go after their designation. I know that they do have a new team working in there, and they just kind of, what is it, the squeaky wheel gets the oil kind of thing. So they need more encouragement. They can bring it to the finish line. Next slide. This past year, well, this current year, 2025, 2025, we didn't get to do this, but I think in 2020, 23, we started basically celebrating Miami Dark Sky Week. And then before you know, we're celebrating Everglades Dark Sky Week. And then it's become like an Everglades Dark Sky Month thing. And in 2023, we were able to get proclamations from Miami-Dade, from Collier County, from Martin County, from Monroe, from Broward. I mean, like, this was the one issue that I felt like if we needed to bring people like with very different political philosophies, for some reason, the night sky thing was something that could unite them. And it was really cool to be able to see that much. And I would love for the Native Plant Study to be involved in this effort. We just need more people involved, because the reason why this year it didn't go as well is because I was not available to kind of, imagine that you were all really amazing musicians and you could have played the violin, the trumpet, whatever. I mean, you are the best of the best out there at doing these things. But if you don't have a conductor, right? And unfortunately, that's how the frustration I had, is that I didn't have other people that can do that role of conductor and just bring all these people to just do it. So anyway, so hopefully next year that will be different. Next slide. This just again on that, if you go on that website, it's still up. Next slide. We would love to see Native Plant Study added in here. Next slide. This is something when I worked for Sierra Club. I don't know if any of you got a chance, if I worked with any of you when I was working as their Everglades restoration organizer. And as part of that, I managed to kind of do this little side thing and work with some of their staff. And we put an action alert to try to encourage mayors to take action on light pollution. I think I checked this, just before the presentation started, and it looks like it's still up. But you could start your own. It really doesn't matter from which organization, but it has a really good language to kind of encourage local officials to get involved. Next slide. And I think that's it. The only thing that I didn't get to put a slide in there is this stuff happening at Big Cypress is pretty, it's pretty hard. I mean, we're going to go into all those details. There's plenty of media, and it's happening as we speak. It's literally every day there's a new update, and most updates are not necessarily encouraging. But regardless of that, any fight that is worth fighting has never been won in a day. So I don't know what, all I know is that there's enough people, awareness is increasing. This particular area that is being impacted is literally right in the midst of our dark sky park. And it may not be, dark sky may not be the most important reason why that development should stop, but it's at least one of the things we can add in. Because what I do like about that, is that sometimes to bring more people into the battle, it might be that the reasons to be in the battle, the most important reasons, might not be what brings them in, but it's that one thing that intersects with something that they care about. So it could very well be that, for example, if somebody is not into protecting the panthers, protecting the alligators, protecting the ghost orchid, whatever, okay, but they may care tremendously about the night sky in there. And so I just want to encourage, find those connections. And
thank you, Diana.
okay, thank you. Okay.
Oh, you further questions?
I'm sorry, say that again.
Is it the Voyager satellite that does this?
So so that was, yes, so there were two of them. There were, I'm sorry, I don't have to put this thing. I'm just gonna hold it. Yeah, there were, I think there were two sets, and yes, that is right. There was, you know, if you've ever seen the movie, the Star Trek, the Star Trek stuff, whatever. So there's this one movie, I think the first movie that showed up, BJ, whatever they call it. It was this thing that supposedly it went into the far reaches of space, and it became so smart. It was looking for the meaning of life, and it was looking back. So anyway, yeah. So those things are still flying out there.
Also, another follow-up question, what are your thoughts on like high canopy to shield light from outside, so like as mitigating that for, because like cities, it's not to prevent crime and not allow cars to hit each other, or like basic light necessities with growing canopy above, like what's happening like Orioles and stuff, where it's like very high canopy shielding light is that a possible solution?
I think that, so the question was, you know, is there, would doing natural tree, for example, tree canopy be a way to, you know, for example, deal, you know, with having less light pollution, right? Maybe, but let me just say the caveat on that is that the best bet is to really do the mitigation right at the light source, not to use trees for that purpose. Because then remember how I showed in the beginning, you're affecting then trees, you're affecting plant life, you're affecting and all the other animals that are, you know, surrounding that area. So personally, even though yes, there might be from the physics standpoint, it could be a way to mitigate it a little bit. Is it the best solution? I don't think so. I think your best solution is right. Again, when you go back to those either 5 principles or that slide that I show you, is make those decisions as to what can you do to retrofit that light so that it's shielded, so that you're not emitting more harmful spectra than you need to, that you're not overlighting, that you're lighting it right where you need it and not, you know, at the belly of the airplane going by, right? So, and I think those things, you can solve it by, I mean, another similar thing that sometimes comes up is people saying it's like, well, maybe one way to get rid of light pollution is we have like bioluminescence trees. I don't know if you've seen that. There's been a few things on the media, people, you know, trying to come up with genes for, yeah. And it's like, I mean, it's just a bad idea.
Any
But
other
in-
questions? I wanna go ahead here.
I was wondering if the organization provides any grants for fighting the alligator from like a legal standpoint?
but which one?
Like, does it provide any grants for fighting alligator albatross on like a legal standpoint?
Yeah. Yeah, so I think if I understand your question is, so they provide grants, right? And usually they look for grants. You know, like most nonprofits, they're usually the recipients of grants. I don't think that they have enough funding. Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you, everybody. I appreciate it.
Really great presentation.
I don't know how to
Thank
turn
you
it
very
off.
much. No, I got it. I got it covered.